What is going on, everyone? I'm Des with DesFit, and today we're going to look at the Xiaomi Mi Band 2. Now, this was kind of an interesting review for me because I generally review mid to high range fitness wearables and smartwatches from the likes of Garmin, Suunto, and Apple, but this is going to be the cheapest heart rate monitor or pretty much any other device I've ever reviewed on this channel, so I kind of had to change my mindset on this. I'm pretty critical with the devices I test, and I'm not going to be any different with this one, but at an insanely low price of $30, I found myself giving it a lot more slack if something wasn't quite right or if things could be better. Again, $30. So you would think that at that price point, the Mi Band 2 is just going to be a toy, and it's not perfect by any means, but you may be just as surprised as I was that this thing is actually not bad at all and is well worth the money. So the Mi Band 2 is going to be an entry-level fitness wearable that can track your steps, distance, calories burned, active minutes, and heart rate on demand. It can also track your sleep, but it also has some basic smartwatch functions like one-way notifications. For the hardware, you're going to get this small little pill of a device that can be inserted into a very comfortable stock band that claims to have hypoallergenic properties, but there are going to be a ton of aftermarket options available. The device itself has a power-efficient OLED display which is UV coated that was somewhat readable in the direct sunlight and is also scratch and fingerprint resistant, and it very much is. It's going to have a very simple one-button interface that can toggle through the different data fields that includes the time along with the day and date, your current step count, distance traveled, current calories burned, as well as measure your heart rate on demand, and then finally battery life. I'll go in detail about the data that it collects when we go over the Mi Fit app. The single button has a nice texture to it with little ripples that look like a DVD or Blu-ray disc, and the texture itself makes it easy to distinguish. It's going to be IP67 splash resistant and also claims to be tested to be tougher with some pretty broad temperature ranges, and I did not have any issues in about 10 degree Fahrenheit weather all the way up to 170 degree Fahrenheit sauna, which I do every day and handle it just fine. It charges via a proprietary USB charger and claims to have about a 20-day battery life, which I could definitely see happening. Now, I use this in a fitness capacity with the heart rate sensor, using it an average of 2 to 4 hours per day, and I was still able to get about 10 days out of this thing. It was very easy to set up using an iPhone, but I was not able to pair it with my Samsung phone, and this is where my first negative comes up. So it comes with Bluetooth 4.0, but it was a little bit hit and miss with connecting. Some days it would go all day without having any issues. Some days it just refused to connect. Now, I tried to put the device in a charger, tried restarting my phone, but nothing. But then suddenly at some other point in the day, it would connect in a heartbeat. Then I tried to pair it with my Samsung phone running Android 7.0. Nothing. Unpaired it from my iPhone, turned my iPhone off, turned all my other Bluetooth devices off. Even just tried to look for it in the regular Bluetooth connection settings and it just wasn't there. So I have other devices paired to my Samsung phone, so I'm not really sure why it wouldn't pair. But anyways, this does come up a little bit later. Since I could not pair it with my Samsung phone, I'll only cover the iPhone connected features, and that's going to be in the way of one-way notifications with basic icons most of the time, but text messages will have the recipient's information on the screen as well. Not bad for a tiny little screen. I would have loved to test the instant unlocking of Android phones, but that wasn't obviously going to happen, as well as Google Fit, but I will be reviewing Google Fit with the TicWatch S review that's coming out soon. So you'll sync the device and view your stats via the Mi Fit smartphone app, and it's basic, but gets the job done. But when you dive in, there's actually some pretty good stuff in here in the fitness realm. But here you can see your daily steps, mileage, calories burned, sleep metrics, the last activity, the last recorded heart rate, your weight, and your goals. For steps, I found the accelerometer to be much less sensitive than any other device I tested against, but this is actually a good thing. Almost all wearables I've tested tend to give you way more many steps than what is actual, and the Mi Band 2 always registered quite a bit lower for the end-of-day steps. So to test if it was missing actual steps, I hopped on the treadmill for a mile with 4 different wearables, and here's the baseline data when I started. And then here's the data after the walk, and you can see that all devices were within just a handful of steps off from one another. So the claim that they have an improved pedometer algorithm that filters out unnecessary movements may very well be true. Calories, on the other hand, I found to be pretty much useless, really because it does not track all-day heart rate. But even without all-day heart rate, there are going to be some major bugs in the software regarding calories, which we'll cover here in a second with the activities. But the sleep tracking seemed to be very much in line with the other devices I tested, so no complaints there. Alright, so with all that out of the way, let's talk about the fitness features. First off, it does have idle alerts that will buzz your wrist with a very strong vibration that you can set up in the MiFit app. In regards to how it claims to automatically track workouts without having to start the activity in the app, it really was only able to track walking and running, and sometimes a light activity, which was almost all the time weight training for me. It wasn't able to track cycling indoors nor outdoors, and since there's going to be limited wrist movement with those type of activities, as well as the fact that it does not have an always-on heart rate sensor, that isn't all that surprising. If you do want to track an activity with heart rate, you can start an activity from the Activity tab in the app. However, there's some strange things in here, such as the fact that there's only going to be 4 activities to choose from. It does not appear to have an option to add additional profiles, and the strangest thing of all is that it appears to use GPS even with the treadmill profile, which is the only non-location-based activity profile available. Also, with the limited amount of activity profiles, it would be nice if you could edit the activity name, but you can't, or at least I couldn't figure it out. For walking outdoors, or any other outdoor activity, you can ignore the distance because it's using the GPS on your phone, so that can be different with every phone. But the first thing I want to point out is the drastic difference in the calorie calculation. And this is going to come up a lot in the examples. It was okay with an average heart rate that was pretty close, but the max was a bit off, and it really didn't follow the same trends as the other wrist-based heart rate that I was wearing, and we'll compare it to a chest heart rate strap in a lot more of the following examples. For running, again, pretty close to a more advanced wrist-based heart rate sensor, as well as a chest heart rate monitor for the average, but again, a little bit farther off for the max. You can see that it tracks okay and stays consistent, but does not account for the climb in heart rate over the course of the session. For indoor running, using the treadmill activity profile, the first thing again is the drastic difference in calories burned. And then for distance tracking, using the accelerometer, it did pretty poor, and that's going to be due to the stride length that it collects, which is quite a bit lower than the Phoenix 5X, which collects very good running dynamics. However, it does collect very good cadence data, so that data point is usable. For this next treadmill run, you'll notice a closer distance in measurement, but that's because it does allow you to calibrate the run afterwards, which is nice, but it only allows you to calibrate it to a certain point. It was a 2.18 mile run before calibrating it, but it only allowed me to go up to 3.26 miles. And again, it didn't calculate stride length that well, but still collected good cadence. For cycling, again, we're going to see quite a big discrepancy in the calories burned. Maybe it was because of the distance, but it could be due to the fact that the heart rate collected wasn't that great either. So how about spinning indoors when there's going to be very little wrist movement? Well, here is where you can see that there is a big flaw in how the MiFit app calculates calories. Even though this was an hour-and-a-half spinning session, it said I only burned 18 calories, even though it collected an average heart rate of 129 beats per minute, and even got the max heart rate correct, but as you can see, it was pretty hit and miss for the first half of the ride. But going back to the Bluetooth connection, this is where you can encounter some problems. I started this ride making sure that the band was synced and connected to the MiFit app before heading out. And then to my utter disappointment, especially since it was only 30 degrees that day, I got back to see that it collected no heart rate for the entire ride. Face, meet, palm. Finally, here is a weight training and high intensity interval training session. Since it only has 4 activity profiles to choose from, I used the treadmill profile since that was the only indoor activity profile. Since I was walking around, it collected some distance data, which in turn produced more than just 18 calories. But again, way off from the calories that you would burn in an hour of weight training and high-intensity interval training. Strangely, it did somewhat follow the trends over time, but was not able to track those sudden changes in heart rate with the high-intensity interval sessions on the second half of the workout. However, there are some things that I really do like about the app, like the nice map display for the outdoor activities, the time in certain heart rate zones, a breakdown of times for uphill, downhill, and flat gradients, and even the speed and altitude graphs. Unfortunately, I could not find a way to export this data in any way, whether it be a TCX or FIT file, nor does it have the ability to share the actual workout data with other apps, at least on the iPhone. On the iPhone, you can add accounts to WeChat, QQ, and Health, but it only shares the steps, sleep, and weight data with Apple's Health app. So the MiFit app has some issues, only having 4 stock activity profiles, which are very limited and absolutely need some gym-based profiles, GPS being on all the time, even for a treadmill activity, and the very odd way that they calculate calories, which is very much based on distance. With its lack of all-day heart rate tracking, it can't come close to giving you even a general estimate over the course of the day. However, with the really good battery life out of this thing, I would love to see an all-day heart rate tracking mode that somebody could choose if they wanted to, and then change around the algorithms in the Mi Fit app, and that could help out those calorie calculations quite a bit. But if you're looking for a very accurate step counter that won't overcalculate steps, this is definitely good for you. And lastly, if you always have your phone on you and you need a companion heart rate monitor for periodic measurements of steady state cardio, like walking, running, and cycling, this would actually be okay, but I would not recommend it for any activities that involve a lot of wrist flexion or movement, like weight training, rowing, or HIIT. So I have to admit, I wasn't exactly expecting much out of this device, but I was pleasantly surprised with the heart rate when it was collected. I did experience some Bluetooth issues with this, which is going to be my biggest complaint other than the calorie calculations, but again, at $30, it's hard to say that this is terrible. And just to add, I have Bluetooth connection issues with a $700 Phoenix 5X, so it's not like others are impervious to this, but I just did experience the issues a little bit more often with this. So if they can figure out the Bluetooth issues along with some of those issues in the Mi Fit app, I would love to give this a huge thumbs up, especially at that $30 price tag. Anyways, thanks so much for watching, and if you have any questions about this device, leave them in the comment section below, and while you're down there, hit that like button if you don't mind, and also subscribe to the channel for a lot more videos like this coming soon.